Welcome to Analog Comics. This is not a political channel, as the name might suggest. This is about comics. But I'd be lying if I'd say that the current situation in Ukraine didn't have anything to do with my next comic selection. Today I'm going to talk about the Red Star. Why the Red Star? If you watch my last video about my comics haul called Almost Enough Comics, I just got a big pile of new comics. Why didn't I do something about them? In fact, I had already started filming another video of a comic series that I've owned for several decades. I did film it. I tried to process that, but I couldn't put my heart into it, and it didn't go anywhere. I was just so devastated of the news of the war in Ukraine, and suddenly I realized that I am again drawn to the Red Star. Red Star is a story where a country called URRS, not USSR, not the Soviet Union, but URRS, which is the United Republic of Red Star. It is the analogy of Soviet Union, where that Red Army attacks a smaller country called Afghanistan, and they tell their soldiers that they are going there to liberate that country. No one knows from what. Maybe from their freedom to choose their own lives. And it does sound a lot like the war in Ukraine at the moment, although it's now not anymore Soviet Union. It's the remains of that called Russia. But the same lie has transformed from history to current news. And Red Star is a really powerful story. It's more of a love story. And it talks about people within that machine, that country and its war machine, and how they discover that they've been lied to, that everything they know is a lie. They found out that they are the gasoline that keeps the power machine of the ruler running. In order for the dictator to be strong, they need to sacrifice their lives for a cause that is not true or real. So this is amazingly and unfortunately very current story. It fits the times we are living now. And I couldn't find anything else to read from my comic collections. I've owned this about 20 years, and I read this at least as many times. And it blows my mind every time. Despite the current times, this is still as a comic, very powerful, very different than anything else you have seen. At least I have seen nothing like this before or after, once you get to see the graphics and what's going on inside. And before we go to the inner pages of these beautiful comics, I tell you that I have 3 parts. I own 3 parts here. The first one is called The Battle of Dathras Gate. The second part is called Nokgorka. And the third is Prison of Souls. And I thought, for all these 20 years, I've thought this is all there is. And just last week I found out that there is a 4th book called Sword of Lies, and it's a story arc that wasn't finished, but it's there, so I wanted to find it. I couldn't find it in these formats, but I did find a book that collects more stories, and in the end it has those missing stories that I don't have. So I did order it right away, but I guess it's going to be a week or 2 before I get it. I might get back to that particular book once I get it. Let's see what's inside. Before going to the inner page, let's look at the covers. I actually had to raise the camera much higher than usual because these are really, really big formats, which I love. Always a winner. The Red Star was originally published in, I think it started 94, somewhere in the middle of 90s. And I think it first came out in single issues, like the regular floppies. I have never seen them, but since this is a US publication, I guess they came out in that format. I always thought that this album format was the original, but I don't think that anymore. Let's compare this, the first part, to a regular trade paperback. As you can see, this format is really big. It's actually much bigger than my favorite format, the European album. This is a European album size here. And this is even bigger. So just to get back to the context, this story, although it's like almost like a copy of what's going on in Ukraine at the moment, this was done in the 90s. And another detail you should be focusing on while we're flipping through the pages is the layout, the graphics, and the colors. It's done, I don't know if it's knowingly or unconsciously, but every page is almost like a propaganda poster or a painting. And I am fascinated by propaganda. I have always been. It's just one of those forms of evil, I guess, that humans produce. And, it's like wars, any atrocities that happen, they tend to draw your interest. But I have always been fascinated by the psychology of the propaganda and how countries are trying to sell a fake dream for their own citizens. They are trying to build another reality next to the real lives of the people. So anyone living in this kind of totalitarian, almost totalitarian or dictatorship-like countries, they have the real life where they live, and then there is the propaganda produced view of their system that doesn't actually exist, but they have to accept that lie in order to be safe. So they live in, at the same time, they live in two different realities, and they know it. And that type of thing, it just interests me. This whole series is made of that. This is like the core of that propaganda. And as the Red Star was made in the 90s, this was not prophecy about the coming Ukrainian war. This was more like allegory of Soviet Union and their war with Afghanistan. But the reason why the current war upsets me even more is because the same thing has happened to Finland also, my home country. And I'll tell you a little bit of that a bit later. Let's move these two aside first and take a look at the first, the Red Star, the Battle of Dathras Gate. This could easily be some kind of Soviet era poster where characters, they are looking dreamy-eyed into some distant future. One strange thing about the Red Star is how it was published, because the first part I have is by Image Comics, and the second part are by Archangel Studios. I think the publication of the series, it just went at least to 3 different places. It jumped from here and there. I don't know the real reasons of why and what, but it's not really interesting detail for me. Here we see the creator's name, Christian Gosset. It's his idea, the whole world of Red Star. he stated that in the 90s, all the comic publishers, they were trying to build up their own universes, and he felt that it was just always basically the same thing but with a different type of looks. So he realized that no one has really tapped into the mythology and history of Russia and Soviet Union, and I think he hit gold there. And as you can see, the pages are coming off. In fact, the whole inside is off, and I think this came off with the first reading. I read somewhere that these particular volumes are like that, and all of my volumes, I think they're all off. I mean, the pages stay together here, they are glued. I can read it like this without the covers. It's okay, it's okay, I survive. Here I want to show you the Team Red Star, because this book really needed a team. You can see the names. I probably shouldn't pronounce them. One thing I need to mention is that this is done by 3D artists. It's full of 3D art, and then there is Gosset's pencils on top of it, or mixed with there. One of the heroes of this comic is also colorist Snakebite. I'm sure that I know it's a person, I don't know real name. I know it's he, but maybe someone knows better who is Snakebite. But he definitely is, 30% of this book. Really great stuff. Okay, here we have introduction by Brian Michael Bendis. And then we get to the art. This is what's going on pretty much. There are these heavy, massive 3D models, and as this was done in 90s, it must have been massive work to get these done. I'm sure it would be easier now. And I have seen other comics done by 3D modeling, and none of them have really made any. They have been more like a gimmicky, like, look, I did it with computers. But in this one, it makes this many times better than it would be done by hand, I guess. And then there is the pencil work combined with the 3D modeling. And all the pages are massive. I mean, look at that. It's as if the pictures wouldn't fit the pages. And it starts with a double spread. And these are tombstones. This is a train going through cemetery that is the size of a city. And the fonts are done so that it feels like even this massive book isn't big enough for the pictures. This is propaganda at its best. I have to go back one step. This spread pretty much tells what's going on. You have the United Republic of the Red Star, URRS. But if you look at the map, it is the USSR. And the Alistan, the country they're attacking, it's Afghanistan. And if you look here, this is the current area of Ukraine. This is where the war is going on at the moment. But what makes this really the whole wording very hard for me is that if you look at here, this is Finland, the first thing behind the border. That's 1,300 kilometers with the state that is as unstable as we've seen. And even before Ukraine, even before Afghanistan, there was a winter war during the World War II where Soviet Union attacked Finland. They made a story of a threat, and then they came to free us from our freedom. And that war left one whole generation shell shocked by the whole war. Okay, the end game was that we got to keep our independence, but it was horrible on both sides. So it's not just some distant passage in the history books. I've seen the people who came back from this war, and I don't wish that for anyone. I've seen what it does to people. Okay, but let's focus on the actual comic. So it starts here as the train is passing through this massive cemetery, and we meet our one of the main protagonists, Maya. She's a sorcerer in the Red Army. The thing is that this story, it mixes that history, so that there is it's also almost like a fantasy. There is also magic, like sorcerers here. And first I thought, okay, this is going to be a put off for me, but it's actually done so well. It fits the narrative, and basically they are weapons, human weapons. It starts here. She is going to a certain grave in the cemetery. She meets this war veteran, and then they start to talk, and she goes back in her memories to the battle of the Dathras gate. And if you look at this page, it's massive. Again, double spread. They make these war machines. These are called sky furnace. They are the biggest of them are 3 kilometers long and inhabiting 20,000 people. And I guess the graphics are kind of blocky. It was 90s, and it might be so that they are blocky because of that. There are no fine details. But as it happens, it actually fits very well. This is very Soviet technology. We always make fun that even the finest Soviet technology is fine-tuned by sledgehammer. You know, everything they do is so robust and big. And so I guess this was something that they couldn't do better in a way, but at the same time, I think they could not have done it better. It fits so well. And this, the way people are done here, this could be some kind of a propaganda like painting. They are fighting in these glorious stances against the enemy. All the text in the book are done this. There are no caption boxes, which is really good because it gives even more space to the art. There are no blocking of boxes. The text is there among just in the sky or in the middle of the adventure. And here we see Maya. Even the language is really grandiose. Here again we see 4 massive panels, and here is actually what the sorcerers do. They are in these tubes which transform them into light, pure light, like kind of a laser beam. And here you can see the kind of text. I am the heat of my nation's anger. When she is shot through the the enemy's smaller flying freighter or whatever war machine it is. So I am the heat of my nation's anger. I am the burning will of the state. An inferno clearing the path of those who resist. So even the language is kind of grandiose, and because of the theme, how it's done, it actually fits this. I think in many other places this could be awkward, the kind of text they are putting here. But then again, the regular dialogue is normal, so it balances this thing. The thoughts and the narration are this grandiose thing, but then the actual speech is more like how people would talk. And here we see the sky furnace in its action. It melts everything under it, like there's a desert, so it just becomes glass and vaporizing all the enemies under it. That's a really cool design as a weapon. Actually, the weapons in this series are pretty amazing. Even the foot soldiers have lighter magic, so they have this spear that they use as an extension of their hand, but they don't really touch it. So it's more like telekinetic thing. And here's Maya again, and the train is of course 3D, as is the graveyard, and then the characters are hand drawn. And as you can see, although I said this is a love story, it's mostly battle. Here's another cool weapon design. They call these crawlers. There are tanks inside these pods, and they drop them to the ground. And if you think of these as 3D modelings, the regular 3D modeling is just a gray flat block. So Snakebite, who is responsible for the coloring, I mean, he's a superhero. The way he does this glow and the colors, it makes this come alive. And here we can see another cool things like small details, but these clear different colored, like this is inside the ship, then it drops into the light, it changes color, and when it goes further and further, it's almost as it disappears into a haze, like a heat haze. This panel always gets me, like how well the colors are done here, and also the impacts. It really feels like this is a kinetic, really fast, hard impact when these pods hit the ground. And even the bigger ships get hit. And you know, this just keeps going on. I don't want to reveal everything. All I can say is that there's a pretty neat idea how the storytellers here depict the truth and the lie, you know, the propaganda reality and the true reality. They're doing this Neil Gaiman trick by doing the anthropomorphic versions of truth and lies. In this context, again, it works superbly as a story tool. The next one is Nokgorka. This actually happens 10 years after the first story, and this has 5 books. Yeah, 5 books here, and then lots of extras all over. It starts as the 5th chronicle of the lands of the Red Sea, Red Star, Book of Nokgorka, and this start brings to my mind that they left blanks here and there. I guess they were meant to do more stories, but as it happens, like here is 3rd chronicle, 2nd chronicle, these don't really exist other than in this book, within this book, but clearly there was some kind of idea for doing more stories. But I read somewhere that they had to stop doing this series because of the whole 3D modeling and hand drawing, coloring. All that process was so hard and time consuming that they just couldn't keep up with required tempo. I wonder if that would be easier to do now. You know, I'd love to see the story this saga have more stories. This second part is more, well, it's brutal. As you can see, it's again not for children, but it's more personal, it's more fast-paced, I guess, and I think it's a good idea because now the reader knows the characters, so you can focus on finer things and just move faster the story. And this is more, there is more like a battle inside city that is in rubbles. And here's a good picture. This depicts how it goes. Two young kids, local kids, staring dreamy-eyed at the propaganda. Your father fought, honor him, join the Red Fleet. And here the two brothers are dreaming how one day they will be part of this Red Army and, you know, sacrificing their lives for the country. I'll just skip through here because I don't think I'll spoil anything. It's hard to make any story of this if I go this fast. And where the first book had more, in the first book almost every spread was almost like double page. Here there are smaller panels and it allows the story to move faster. And there's also more backstory of the characters. Okay. Then the last one I have, Prison of Souls. Oh, as I said again, the story has left the cover. Again, 5 books here, and I'm missing those 3 books that came after this. I may make a video of them, the last 3 stories, when I get the bigger publication. This goes back into these larger panels and is more a direct continuation of the Nokgorka, the part 2. And actually in this one there is a massive battle between the biggest sky furnace, well, they're not spaceships, they're kind of airships, like massive battles, and they're very well done, very intense, and the designs get better and better, the armory and weapons. Here again you can see how the coloring makes these blasts blur out, and it looks like you can see through a haze or heat. Really nice stuff. This is one of the coolest things, as these ships are 3 kilometers long, so they have these grid warriors. They attach to the inner support grids of the enemy ships. They invade and then they move in those grids, and in this book they send their own grid warrior to fight or counterattack the one that infiltrated them. And I always felt that story wasn't really complete, and actually in this book Gosse, the writer, says that he was meant to do one complete book of just that fighting, but because of some time constraints they had to skip it. This is one of the coolest weapons I have ever seen in comics. Here the sorcerer, she has this handle with different type of holders, and then she puts these different shaped tubes or whatever they are into that holder, and somehow that helps her to cast a spell and make them as a weapon, and they transform to a different type of weapon depending on what they put to the handle. And here she summons this type of weapon, she has actually two handles here, and the rest of the weapon is not real. It's just, but it's still there, and even the sights are there, but they are almost half a meter higher than the actual gun. That's cool. This is really cool. And later she transformed the handle again to something else with a different spell. Okay. But let's skip again the last pages, in case you want to see yourself where it ends. And then they have in all the books, at least in these big trade paperbacks, they have quite a lot of extras of the designs they've been doing, 3D modeling and all that. And as I said, I think even if you buy these now, they will break up easily. That for 20 years has been one of my favorite comics. I've read this many times. There's nothing like this. I've seen many try the 3D modeling, but it hasn't brought anything good to the actual comic. But here, the whole propaganda-like paneling and layouts, everything just clicks together, and it's a shame that they had to discontinue the series. But you can still enjoy this. I mean, even as I said, this story happens 10 years before this one, and these two are continuation to each other, and you can still enjoy them very much without having the end, because it's clear that they were planning other type of stories here and there in between to kind of a separate universe, so to speak. So I'm just happy to have at least these stories within that universe. It's very, very interesting to see the last three stories that should be direct sequel to the Prison of Souls. Okay, that's it for now. And yeah, it seems that every video I do, the comics that I'm presenting, they are forgotten and discontinued or something like that. But it's not intentional. It's just a coincidence. One day I'll be doing something everyone knows, like Asterix. But Red Star, definitely something you should check out if you're looking for something that you really, really don't yet have. This is one of them.